Praise the Lord, everyone. We are very excited about our session today in our parenting series. And the title of today's session is Parenting Stress and How to Cope with It. This is a good time for you to invite a neighbor, invite a friend, invite someone to join you as we talk about parenting and mental health, how to remain sane regardless of how much stress you're encountering. I'm going to, while we wait a few moments for others to join us, I'm going to ask our presenter today, Kimberly Brown. I'm going to introduce you, and so I'm going to ask you if you would take your slide presentation down momentarily.
Yeah.
We are very excited about today's session. You know, many times as parents, we find ourselves in a situation where we're not really able to, how shall I say it, to cope with the stress and strain of life. And we find ourselves in situations where we are looking for a way out, if you will. You know, we love our children. We're excited to be parents. And especially when we have a child that looks a lot like us or has a personality very similar to our personality of what we remember when we were growing up. But parenting is something that can be very stressful. Remember that children don't come with an instruction book. And so whatever we're facing in life, whatever our tests and trials are, it doesn't change the fact that we are parents. Children don't disappear and then appear when it's convenient for us. They have their needs and it's ongoing. And so it's important to learn as a parent, as a grandparent, as an aunt or an uncle, even as a care provider. It's important to learn how to handle stress in our life. And so today I'm very excited that Kimberly Brown is with us. She is a pastor in the city of Port Huron, and she is also a licensed master's level social worker. She has been accredited in the field of social work and has credentials in several areas within that domain. And so today, she is going to talk with us about parenting and stress. Her agency is called Zoe Consulting, and she will give more information about her agency as we move forward. If you know of someone that you think it would be a good idea for them to join us in this session, then please send them the link so that they can come on and join us. We will also provide this later on in the International Humanitarian Services website. And so those who missed today's class will be able to sign up and register and then access all of our classes through the website. So without further ado, I'm going to now turn you in the hands of Kimberly Brown, Pastor Kimberly Brown, Therapist Kimberly Brown. Amen, my friend.
Yes, that is for sure. Yes, well, good morning, Bishop Reed. And how are you today? I'm hoping that all is well with you and all those that are joining us today. I'm hoping that you're having a stress-free morning. And even if you're not, we're going to learn a little bit about that today and how maybe after this video, we're hoping that you will feel even more proficient to be able to face some of those challenging things that go along, especially as it pertains to parenting. But you will also understand that uh, being able to reduce stress in our life is so important to every area of our life. I'm going to take time now just to begin to pull up our PowerPoint. Our PowerPoint presentation today will have some information given to you. We'll have some videos that we share and all of the above. As Dr. Reed was saying, I am a pastor, a senior pastor here in the city of Port Huron, Zion Cathedral of Praise International Ministries, and also a counselor by profession. And I have been a counselor for many, many years. And so we've had an opportunity to work on macro and clinical levels of social work, and macro meaning, community development perspectives and the larger scope in which social work serves in politics and policy making, all of those kinds of things. And also as a clinician, I had an opportunity to work for 7 years as a psychiatric social worker on all three of the levels, in outpatient, in step down programming, also in inpatient services. And so through this, we have been able to gain some knowledge along the way, but it's always nice to have this kind of dialogue, because here we can share. If there are questions as you go along the way, then we would be pleased to welcome you to give your questions, give your comments, things that you might feel that speak to you specifically. You can highlight those things, and Bishop Reed will field those to us so that we can then be able to respond to them. So we'll stop periodically and be able to give time for that. So let me pull up our PowerPoint here so that we can get into this a little bit and use our time in being able to share the information. We start out looking here at a picture that might look familiar. I want to say that in terms of parenting, I believe that I have a little bit of experience, that I am the parent of a beautiful blended family of 6 adult children, now 15 grandchildren. Don't have any great grands yet, but I always say that the grandparenting is always very nice, right? Because that we had the pleasure sometime of being able to come and love on them and then have them go back home to their caregivers. But sometime even in our society, it becomes necessary for grandparents to step up. So this thing of parenting stress can go along all of the age ranges and find us at various seasons and stages in our life. So I'm hopeful that something that is shared will be informative to you. I want to just start out with looking at this whole area of what is stress. And we're going to show a little PowerPoint and help you be able to see that a little bit better. But what is this thing of stress? And according to Psychology Today and other definitions that we will define as we go along the way, one of them is, and in a simplified version, the psychological perception of pressure. And on the other hand, the body's response to it. So it is that pressure that we experience in the human functioning of our body, of our lives, and it is the perception of that stress. How is that body experiencing those day-to-day challenges that we are having, or the day-to-day experiences that we're having, and we're always experiencing something. We're getting up, we're moving along in our day. All of a sudden, you might get a call, you might find yourself having overslept. And so your body then automatically goes into these responses. And so, consequently, if you look at this, you'll see that there is what we call normal stress. Normal stress is necessary for our lives and for our living systems. It is that thing called fight or flight. And that often we respond to it. I noted situations that we come across all of the time, and we respond to automatically, or it gives us the signals and the signs of danger in that autonomic response system. And so we're dealing with this all of the time. Fight or flight. What do I need to do? If I see a dog coming towards me, I need some of that stress to be able to get me moving and get me up and going in a different direction, or to help me so that I could be able to, in that moment, respond effectively to that particular problem that I'm having. However, what happens is that sometimes normal stress is something that happens to us all. However, there's this other area, and you'll see it down there, chronic stress. And this is that abnormal or bad, or what we call toxic stress, on the other hand, or it becomes that stress that is prolonged. It's like pulling on a rubber band. A rubber band, as you pull it, you expand it, that's what it's supposed to do. But the more that you keep it expanded and out of its normal ranges and out of its normal scope of its limitations there, you don't, and it's pressed way beyond its limits, then we will find that just like that rubber band, if you can see it in your mind, that's how our human bodies are not made for what we call this area of chronic or bad or toxic stress. And so we see that this thing of prolonged stress can affect us over time in many ways. And I'm going to show you a little video next where you'll be able to see why that happens. You'll be able to see why that happens in our human body. You see here that it can affect you in such a way that it can exacerbate poor health, hypertension, back pain, heart disease. All of these things can be a part of chronic stress. So I'm going to show you something here, and hopefully it will view well. Okay. All right. And if not, we'll just kind of go into a little bit of what happens. So if you can listen here, and hopefully you can hear that.
We're not hearing the sound.
Not hearing this?
So if you could restart it, and in the lower left-hand corner on the share screen, there is something you need to click.
Okay, let me stop it. Oh my. Okay.
So if you go into your share screen,
Yes.
where you first were getting ready to share the video, go back to that screen. And once you open that screen, look in the lower left-hand corner.
Okay. Oh, and see that there is a microphone. Turn it up here.
No, that's not it.
That's not
Go
it?
all the way out of your PowerPoint.
Oh, okay.
So everyone, just bear with us for a moment while we
Yes,
get
thank
this
you.
straight.
I'm sorry about that. All right. And I'm going over here to my left.
Lower left on that screen.
Yes.
And you see where it says something about sound?
Microphone, same as systems, a
No, no,
speaker.
no, you're in the wrong spot.
In the wrong spot.
Click share screen.
Okay.
And now
share sound.
there you
Yes.
go. Mhm.
All right. Okay. I think we're back on track here. All right. Okay, just kind of lead back into that. How does stress affect the human body? That was what we were looking at here. So I'm going to start this short video over again and allow us to hear some information in that here.
Welcome home. Finally, time to relax after another stressful day at the office. Unfortunately, it's not over. Stress can have an intense and sometimes dangerous effect on your body. It all starts in a part of your brain called the amygdala. When your boss yells at you or you start freaking out about a deadline, it sends a warning message to your hypothalamus, which starts mobilizing the nervous system. Your heart rate jumps, your intestines go a little haywire, and glands start pumping out that dreaded stress hormone, cortisol. A stressful day here and there isn't a huge deal, but if you're one of those people who spends most of their life as a stress ball, all this biology can spell trouble. In the heart, blood vessels constrict, which makes pumping blood a difficult job. That sends your blood pressure up much higher than it should be. Things aren't so great in your digestive system either. Those butterflies in your stomach, that's actually your body limiting gastrointestinal activity. That means less food broken down, bloating, and a lack of nutrient absorption. All while hormonal changes are happening that can raise your cholesterol levels over time. Stress can also make you gain weight. That cortisol flooding through you ramps up your appetite and makes you want to eat a lot. And that nasty cortisol isn't done. It can also cause changes in the brain that may hurt your sleep cycle and your memory. And on top of all that, chronic stress puts people at higher risk for depression, anxiety, and heart disease. So next time you're stressed, take a deep breath and consider a few other ways to deal with it. Exercise.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there and we'll go into later a little bit more on our coping strengths and coping
Eat healthy
skills that we
food.
can apply to this. So as you can see, stress upon the body can be very, very damaging. Those surges or high surges of cortisol over and over again can increase heartbeat, circulation of blood, and really cause a lot of hazardous problems for our bodies. So stress and reducing stress, being able to identify when we are in those stress modes and when we find ourselves in prolonged stressful conditions, knowing the things that we can do to help ourselves. And as I said, we'll come back to it and get into it a little bit more about what it is that we can do. So we've identified a little bit for you in those two videos there, and in that video there, and also in our previous slide. I'm going to get more into now the parenting stress, okay? And stress, it is stress getting still. Stress has the same effect on the human body. However, when you're dealing with parenting stress, there are some different variables. It definitely has to do with one's own interpersonal and environmental stressors that can impact on the way specifically that we respond to life and how those responses then help us to respond to our children specifically at all ages. And so as you can see here, one of the definitions that is given, according to psychologists, parenting stress is the distress you experience when you feel you just can't cope as a parent. The demands being placed on you are too high and you feel you don't have the resources to meet these challenges of life. We're going to get into that a little bit more about then what does that mean? I heard Bishop Reed say in the beginning that parenting doesn't come with a book. Well, here it is, a child's way of saying how to train the parent to be a perfect parent. We wish they came out with that manual, but it doesn't come out that way sometimes. Becoming a parent can thrust you into so many varying emotions from just being elated and to sometime even experiencing what we've come to talk about in the field as postpartum depression, cause us to respond in different ways in our life. These challenges and growth stages that our children go through, we can find them, ourselves dealing with them in a way that allows us to just kind of maintain our emotions in a calm, peaceful manner. And then there's some situations that that child is experiencing or that you are experiencing in your life that can cause you to respond in a very different way. When a person is under stress, when a person is in that fight or flight mode for a prolonged period of time, then many times, as you could hear it say, the blood vessels begin to constrict. Therefore, concentration is not, their focus is off. Many times not getting enough sleep. A lot of things are happening to the human body. And then the demands of having to get up very early, to make sure that you get your children together, making sure they have all of their parts and their pieces in place in order for them to be successful in that day and to help them to be able to learn to do those things. And so all of these things can play a factor. I want to get into this word that it talked about when a parent does not feel that they have the resources. I use two words, internal and external. And we're going to just go even to our next slide and highlight that so that we can help us understand what resources are. Resources can be interpersonal, our strengths, our ways in which we have knowledge and the way we apply that knowledge. It can affect us in how we're able to use that knowledge to navigate through life. So you'll see there a list there, emotional intelligence, being able to have the ability to have emotional strength to be able to meet some of these challenges in a way that it does not cause you to derail. It's like a train on a track, and how that train is able to stand the track no matter what the speed is. Sometime though, however, if that train track has some kind of impairment, if that train track makes a sudden turn, then it runs more high risk of being derailed. So therefore, those internal strengths, those internal messages that we have in our own mind, and many times those messages come from our own child rearing. They come, from outside voices and things that have been spoken to us. They come from our thoughts and our interactions with, within ourselves and the world around us. Sometimes if we have faith in our life, or, we have God and know, that He is there, we have that strength of hearing, or that inner strength that is there that we can draw from, even through maybe reading the word or reading some kind of positive literature or whatever to help us and assist us. However, there are times also that there are things that we do not have control over, isn't that right? Or there are things that arise as a result, maybe, of some areas of impairment or dysfunction in our life. For example, I noted resources. So whereas a resource is something that you should be able to draw from, is that not right? A resource is a place that you can go to fix a specific problem, and or get a specific need met. When a parent is in stress, they do not feel like sometime or prolonged stress that they have within them the ability. Have you ever heard, I'm going to lose my mind? I feel like I'm going to break. I just can't do it. All of those things suggest that a person feels like their resources have they have ran out, that they have nowhere else, that they're blocked in, and that blocked in feeling is creating more pressure on them. Environmental, parent partner relationship conflict, sometime in relationships within the home, within marriage. Maybe there are single parents that are seeking to co-parent their children together, and they have some difficulties within their communication. And so what is creating conflict, which is causing that other individual to have added stress, financial problems, feeling socially isolated. Sometime after people have been used to having a very active life, used to, being in the work world, and now all of a sudden a mother finds herself, or a father finds themselves now having the sole care and responsibility, or the majority care and responsibility for a new life that is totally dependent upon them, that it totally relies on them for their every waking need. Sometimes that person is sleep deprived. There could be all kinds of things that are going on that is causing them to feel like they are not able to go about their normal lives, that they're going through circumstances in their life that they can't tell other people about. All of these things that add inadequate support. Environmental stressors, racism, abuse, poverty, and more. And so I'm going to share this little video here again for our attention and for us to look at. And if there are any questions that you might have about anything that has been spoken yet, that I've spoke previously, then please field those to Bishop. And I believe we do have one chat here. So let me just look at that. Okay. All right. And we'll go away from that and just hear a little bit in this video how toxic stress can affect us.
We all want to give our children what they need to grow to their full potential. And as parents, we play an important role in their development. But our parenting is affected by the supports and challenges in our lives, including experiences that cause what's known as toxic stress. Stress is called toxic when it doesn't let up, and there aren't supportive relationships to help us cope. That can make it hard to get through the day, let alone be the best caregivers we can be. The overwhelming burden of toxic stress can affect the health and well-being of adults. It can also affect the development of children in ways that can last a lifetime. Stress that puts us in a constant state of fight or flight can make it feel like we're always on edge, or like it's impossible to calm down. And these feelings can overload our ability to provide the supportive relationships that children need in order to thrive. Think of toxic stress as heavy cargo. Just as a truck can only haul so much weight before it stops moving forward, challenging life circumstances, like losing a job or not having a place to live, can weigh us down. And just as a truck can break down if it carries too much for too long, we too can wear down from being overburdened without the support we need. When toxic stress is related to things we can't control, like poverty, abuse, or racism, it can feel especially heavy to take on. But experiencing toxic stress doesn't have to determine who we are or how we act. And understanding how stress affects us can empower us to make change in our lives. There are things we can do to buffer ourselves and our children against the effects of even the most intense stress.
I wanted to bring it to that particular point, just highlighting again, and the interchange of the word as it pertains to resources and supports, how that is used here. And then I will start that back up. I just wanted to note that and give you now some ways in which even no matter what is going on, when a person feels again that their supports or their resources are limited, things that we can do, ways in which we can reach out to begin to look, because sometime within your own immediate environment, you may not be able to look around you and find those supports. Family, maybe the family relationships have been broken down, and therefore there is no one in your immediate environment that can readily come and assist you by taking hours of care for the children. Sometimes you have to look then and understand and reach out to know, where are those supports in my community? Where are those supports in my job? Where are those supports, around me that I can begin to access so that a person is not feeling so blocked in? My saying is that we will be either living one or two places. We'll be living in the problem, or we'll be gaining information so that it can open us up to understand that there are solutions. Living in the problem can be stressful. When we're living in the problem, it is like living in the eye of it is like living in a whirlwind, and everything is blowing around, and it seems like you are, as that truck is now, overloaded. Where can I go? What can I do? I do not have enough of what I need to be able to get through these moments of stress. And staying in that place, as I told you, can become very toxic to the human body. It can become toxic to your environment and how you relate to your children. So let us look on here just a little bit more.
Just as redistributing cargo from an overloaded truck can help it run again, supports and services, things like food pantries, job training programs, or even just talking with someone who cares, can help us focus on caring for ourselves and our children. And just as regular maintenance is required to keep a truck running, reliable access to community services can help us manage the load during challenging times. Reaching out to get support can be difficult, but things that might seem very small, like sitting and breathing deeply, playing I Spy with your child, or even sharing a walk or a snuggle, can make a difference. Over time, these small steps can build our resilience and our children's by strengthening the skills and relationships that help us cope. And our communities can build resilience too by providing services and opportunities that help all families thrive. Supports like these help build a strong foundation for developing brain architecture. So the earlier we can provide them, the better. But the brain is capable of change throughout life, and it's never too late for a tune-up. Coping with and healing from toxic stress takes a lot of effort and support. But we all need the help of others in difficult times. And building resilience and strength in our families and communities is one of the most important investments we can make as a society. In the end, it will help all.
Okay, as we're looking at this, building resilience, the ability in our lives to be able to maneuver, maintain, go forward in the midst of the various challenges of life. As I noted to you, you can't always stop the storm, but it is where you position yourself in the midst of it, knowing how, and knowing that it's okay to reach out for what? Help. Knowing that it's okay that around you, you may not have the answers, but it does not mean that the answer is not there. So as we're looking at that, I wanted to bring that out because resource deficiency or support deficiency, many times, as I noted before, can become overwhelming. It's good to also identify in that, as we're looking at that particular screen, what is the stressor and where is that stressor coming from? Is it internal? Is it part of maybe a thought pattern that we have? Because I am reminded, and as we're talking this and coming from international humanitarian services and interject faith into our lifestyles and into the things that we share and so we teach, I'm reminded, of a passage of scripture that tells us, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So sometime internally, our thinking patterns, what are we thinking about ourselves? What words are we communicating to ourselves? So it's important. Where is that stress coming from? Okay. Is it internal? Is it the lack of information that I have now? So you saw one of the things was sometime to educate yourself, sometime to stop and take time to read a book, to hear inspirational words that are spoken to you, especially if you're thinking about negative things. You really don't want to get around people who are negative and having maybe as many challenges as you are. Now, sometimes that can be helpful to share and to know that you're not alone in it, but you don't want to really just stay there if you're trying to help yourself improve in a situation. It is looking for that information that is going to provide you the support to be able to move through it. Okay. And then, of course, as I said, you want to also understand, is it environmental? Where is this coming from? And then, therefore, if it is, then what kind of things can I look to? For example, are there financial assistance programs? If I'm dealing with some inequalities, or I find myself in situations, or my children is dealing with some injustice, racial injustices or things, what can I do about this? What resources are available to me in my community, in the school? Unfortunately, it may be consulting, legal advice on situations, but knowing that you do not have to stay stuck in that situation. Abuse, whether it is abuse by a partner, whether it is abuse that a person has experienced in their past that caused them to be able to respond in a certain way, whatever it is, identify where it is and know that there can be support and there is assistance. At the end of our video, you're going to see one of the slides is going to give us some information about ways in which we can reach out. In your community, I always know the 211 resource number is something that is available. Reaching out to your pastor, reaching out to those that may be within your congregation work. And if it is that you're feeling that you're in a new place and you don't really know a lot of people, then always know
All of us become
every
parents.
community has some resources within it that will assist you in that situation. You do not have to feel alone. So I don't know if there are any questions, any comments, any thoughts. If so, I'll just refer to our chat. And if not, we'll keep going on in our presentation.
I think there is one question,
Yes.
and that question has to do with the way that we saw our parents function as parents, and the impact that has on our understanding of what it means to be a parent. There's a
Yes.
saying that we parent the way we were parented.
Yes.
And so that's one question that we have at this time.
Okay. And we're going to get into that a little bit more even in our next session, but I want to take a moment to speak to that. When we are born, we do have some innate abilities and innate qualities within ourselves. But most of the information that we received in our life is learned information. We learn from various systems. We learn, as I said, and most of all from our primary caregiving system. That primary caregiving system for some may have been their mom and dad in the home. It could have been one or the other parent in the home for various reasons that provided parenting. It could be both of those parents, as I said, co-parenting together, or it could be in the absence of one of those parents. It could be a combination of rearing because those parents had to be out, and so consequently they had, grandparents or other support systems, or it could have been older siblings or siblings that were around them, or friends or neighbors. Wherever we got our primary information, because of course we understand developmentally that much of our program comes within those early stages of our life. It talks about 0 to 5, that a lot of the information, and it's hard to think about that because we say, well, what did I really remember? What did I really ingest into my life? What can I draw back, on as it pertains to when I was, 2 or 3 years old? But we will be very, very surprised because during that time, the brain is increasing in its ability to absorb, take in, beginning just in a concrete fashion, but still able to, understand what is this. And it's interesting that trauma, it is interesting that how things that happen to us or impact us negatively, that they seem to leave the most lasting images in our life. And so as we looked at those parents around us, maybe those parents were parents that you observed them having a lot of talk amongst themselves, communication, laughter. They seemed to be able to work well together when they dealt with their challenges or problems. They did not bring those things before you. Or you looked at a parent, maybe that parent themselves unknowingly, because it depends on what age or time that you find yourself in. There were times when, we don't talk about things, we just go through it, everybody's okay. And you watched and observed and saw maybe one of those parents being depressed or overly anxious. What you've learned about that in times and wondered why for that child there, and for yourself, why that parent was unpredictable when they were in those states, when they were having and experiencing those prolonged stresses themselves that had led them into these kinds of diseases when they were ill. How that affects you as a child or parent, how they maybe did not communicate with each other, how there may have been physical abuse, substance abuse, different things that you view definitely impacts upon. Or it could be that those parents just were parents that were very authoritarian. There was not a lot of room for decision making. There was not a lot of room for a child to be able to express their feelings, whether it was in a respectful manner or in whatever way. And so consequently, learning then from those parents that maybe it's not okay to ask questions. Maybe I do have to sort and reason. Maybe I do have to figure out things, within myself. Sometime when kids are dealing with, deprivation, they're in survival mode. And so they're trying to navigate around the situation, because I always tell parents, listen, whatever you are experiencing, those children are experiencing. They're experiencing it with you. They may not be experiencing it in the same way. They're experiencing it with you. And a lot of times our those that have to suffer in their silence because of what those parents are dealing with. So I hope that answers a little bit of your question, but the answer is for sure. Yes, 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 it does. Okay. But this thing of understanding parent stress and the lifelong effects that it has on the parent and their children. And as you can see, some of these various pictures here in different stages of life, you see this one mom who's up here in the picture. She's there with her children. Maybe she's a single parent, but she is working with her children there in that moment. They got a smile on their face. Okay. We see a child here who's graduating. So they're moving through the stages of their life, and those parents are there and they look in the pictures that they might be supportive. And then you see two parents headed in a totally different direction. And this child is in the middle, just screaming, just sobbing, trying to find themselves in the midst of all of this aggression. So we'll look at this. I wanted to bring this out, and we don't really have time to really go into these stages, but I encourage you, especially if you are a parent of young children, that this understanding of the developmental stages, whether it's Erickson, calling, whether whatever resources that you are looking at. I have some resources that you'll see. Dieter and Decker has a good book on parenting stress and childhood development that would be good maybe to engage and get in. But as you can see here, it takes you through these 8 stages of development, all throughout life from 0 to death. And the thing about it is that children are in their growth process. You see this trust versus mistrust. They're learning how to trust the world around them as infants. Autonomy versus shame. Going through those stages now where they're becoming and developing a little bit more independence. Are they able to do that confidently? Is there reinforcement in their environment as they're moving through these things? Or is there shame and doubt and fear? Are they always told to stop? Are they always held from, being able to, of course, we know care, but are they able to, grow and develop in this initiative versus guilt and preschooling, industry versus inferiority? And as I noted to you, that it would be good for you to look through these stages, good to go back and just take time. When we're in school, it's interesting to me how, we will spend hours and hours, multiple dollars, in our professional skill building and learning. But the job that is the greatest job that we could ever be given, that oftentimes we just leave it to chance. We need to understand who is that child, be able to look at where they are developmentally. Many times I've watched parents because of their own frustrations, and they will have expectations on children that are developmentally not at the stage where they're able to manage, handle, comprehend, understand what it is that is even being asked of them. And the parent becomes very frustrated because of their own stress or because their own need at that time to have that particular need met. And when that child is not able to do that or to perform that, or again, in being able to engage and being able to give reinforcement in seasons of their life. As you see, again, this takes you from 0 all the way, through the stages of your life. But I wanted to look at this thing over here. The stress can impact how a person or how a parent parents. We are seeing here this whole word of parent effect. Parent effect is what is the behavior? What are the actions? How is stress communicating itself within the body and then causing the individuals experiencing the stress, or the parent in this case, to portray that, or to be able to effectively deal with and or ineffectively deal with their children around them. So this is the parent effect on child's behavior and development. And the reality is that we can, if we're honest with ourselves, none of us are perfect. As Bishop said, we didn't come with the manual. And so we have said things or done things or acted in ways many times that our behavior can, that was just what we were talking about, can affect that child. Okay. And then sometimes the parent themselves might, not within themselves, remember that internal, be feeling stressful, but their child, because of what they're experiencing, they're trying to, they know that they have, practice this afternoon, and they come home and they haven't put their things in the right place. And so all of a sudden they're just pulling apart everything and, running around. And now that parent's peaceful place has now become disturbed because that child is under stress because maybe they have not managed themselves well in the situation, or other situations that can happen. I'm using a more simplified version. Sometime, of course, in those teenage years, when they're discovering who they are, there can be a lot of things that can go on that child can have. So this is called bidirectional processing. Parent influences on the child, and then the child's influence on the parents. Yes, children can have influence on their parents as well. And so I would encourage you to take some time, educate yourself, go back, even for your own well-being, to understand where you are in the stages of life and how that is playing out. Maybe you're at a stage here where it's talking about this whole thing of intimacy versus isolation, generativity versus stagnation. Are we ourselves non-productive, watching our children become productive, and the impact of what that's happening? Sometimes people say, well, I put my life on hold for you. And they really, instead of looking at that as the benefit that they had to do it, sometimes that becomes very painful for them. And then that child is then forced to live out the sentence of that parent's pain, because that parent now is feeling in some ways that they lost something, that they didn't have something, or they'll put added pressure upon the child because of something they feel they miss, and they want them to achieve or do maybe even beyond their limitations and or their own interests. So these are things that we have to examine our own selves and to see where we are. And that's a skill. So I broke it down because it was a little bit harder to see. And so this is what this slide is that helps us see it a little bit more clearly. I'm sorry, before I start this, I don't want to start this just yet. Okay. Before I start that particular slide, I want to just finish up in talking about where we were with that, and talking about those bidirectional processes, talking about some of the ways in which we can understand our stress and how that can impact that child at their given developmental stages. Because again, most of the time as the parent, you are that child's first point of learning. Now, I'm going to talk with you a little bit about another tool that is being used in the field of psychology, social sciences, social work, in counseling, and in schools to really, really try to help get a handle on or provide some way in which we assess and look at this early childhood development or childhood experiences. All of us have had them, childhood experiences, positive, and some of them could have been negative. Some of them could have been wonderful. We can have stories where we say, oh, I had the best childhood. I had the best parents. But depending on those parents themselves, and how well. So I thank you today for taking time to stop and say, listen, I'm going to stop, I'm going to slow down, I'm going to make sure that I am connecting with these kinds of series that are being presented to me, that I am educating my mind. And as we go through here in our next slides and get more into the coping elements, that I am coping well with life. However, we know that sometimes there are generational things that take place and that there are adverse childhood experiences that the ranges. There is a scale with this scale or with this assessment tool that is being utilized. It looks at the degree of adverse. And so the word adverse there is that's what it's looking to measure in relationship to the level of adversity, the level of difficulty, the level of trauma that a child may or may have not experienced. How are they rating on this scale? And in looking at this information, then they take the information and have been able to find out some very interesting things. Looking at then how is it affecting the child in relationship to their social environment? How is it impacting on them in terms of learning, maybe even learning disability? How is it affecting them with some emotional impairment that they have? We see that, in our schools and in our counseling offices, and sometimes the children having difficulty with anxiety, with extreme disorders, disruptive disorders, RAD, having difficulty with these reactive attachment disorders and of such, looking at the impact where they are not functioning well, or they had their inability sometimes to complete things, or they find themselves in toxic relationships themselves. The more adversity that they're showing that was in childhood, the more stress that it is playing itself out as that person goes through their adult life. They're finding difficulty in being able to navigate or manage life well in a way that they can be what we would term in society a productive person in society. The good thing about it is that when we discover, when we come to awareness of, as you heard in one of those slides, that we are adaptive beings, and therefore there is the opportunity, once looking at it and getting a good picture to understand how these things played out, where they begin, then being able to get intervention, to be able to assist and help. And then there's some things that as we go along, we believe in the power of prayer and the power of God's healing grace for our lives to deliver us from the lower states. And so being able to apply, this information, being able to reach out and get the help, whether it's counseling, whether it is being able to get work support, whatever it is, being able to get a good look. And so this is what this tool allows you. And as I always say, assessments are assessments, tools are tools. And it does not speak to all of what a person is, but it only is there to highlight and give a good look. So here's a little video. It's a little, sad and a little bit disturbing in some senses, but it's from the child's view. And the child is introducing, and it's here to introduce. Let's look at this.
My parents don't understand. All the drinking and fighting means I'm scared. I'd like a cuddle, perhaps a bedtime story, but mostly I'd like them to stop shouting at me. And sometimes they hit me. Feeling scared every day and not feeling loved or wanted will change me for the rest of my life. Later, I'll have problems at school, problems with alcohol, and I'll get in trouble with the police. What's happening to me right now means I'm more likely to have serious health problems in middle age and die sooner than I should. Doctors say my life is full of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. But in my world, this means I see my dad hitting my mum. Dad's got a drinking problem, and mum's always crying, even with the tablets. I'm always being shouted at and hit. After the booze and fags, there's not a lot of money for toys or clothes, or even food. I'm getting used to being scared all the time. Now I'm just angry. The doctors say things are changing inside me. My brain isn't learning how to control my feelings properly. My body can't relax like those kids who don't have ACEs, so my body won't be able to repair itself properly when I get older, making it more likely I'll get cancer or heart disease as an adult. It hurts when my parents hit me, but the real damage is hidden, and that damage will be with me for life.
I drink and smoke. They say I'm out of control, but I'm not. It's just my way of coping with my ACEs. I've been in plenty of fights, but what's wrong with that? Kids' punches don't hurt half as much as when my dad hits me. I beat up a kid last week at school because he looked at me weird. Who cares? I ended up with more time out of school. Learning's not for me anyway, and the teachers don't care any more than my parents. I don't like the way anyone looks at me except my girl. She's 16 and pregnant, just like my mum was with me.
So this is where I've ended up. I've got diabetes and cancer's probably on the way. I know these kill you, but I couldn't do without them. I've never had a proper job and I've spent time inside. I hate my kids. I hate their mum too, until she left, so my kids have grown up with ACEs. And now my daughter had her first kid. She's 16. The course of my life was set in the wrong direction a long time ago. I know where I'm heading, and sadly I know where my kids are heading too. This doesn't have to happen. A little help in childhood makes a big difference to where life takes you. When I was a baby, the nurses noticed that my mum wasn't coping and helped her and explained how important my childhood is to the rest of my life. So, with a bit of help, she coped. The police came round after next door complained about the noise from mum and dad fighting. They asked how I was feeling. I told them I was scared all the time. Mum and dad got help, The shouting got better and the hitting stopped. I even got some bedtime stories. I still had problems at school, but the teacher asked me about what was happening at home. I got help controlling my feelings. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough. I'm now married with 2 children, and I've got a job, most of the time. I haven't repeated the same problems with my kids. We got help when being a parent got too much. Our children are ACE-free, and that means their kids stand a good chance of growing up ACE-free as well. Almost half the people in England and Wales experienced one ACE as a child, and 1 in 10 of us suffered 4 or more ACEs. If we stop ACEs, millions of children would not become smokers or binge drinkers, and levels of violence in adults would be cut in half. Fewer ACEs in childhood also means fewer adults developing diseases like cancer, heart disease, and diabetes in middle age. We all need to be ACE aware. Are you? Doctors, police, nurses, teachers, firefighters, and most importantly, parents. The more you know about ACEs, the more you can help stop children growing up with ACEs in their lives. And for those of you who have already suffered ACEs, the more you know, the more you can help yourself and others who have suffered ACEs cope.
Okay, go back there. All right. As you can see, that in that little 5-minute story there, it reviewed and went over this area of ACEs, again, meaning adverse child experiences. And so the scale will take a look at those things. It'll take a look at how close were those individuals to you that parented, that were your parent, your parents, and or caregivers, were you ever abused? It'll ask the different questions to help people understand the different ranges. So this is what this tape was showing, and also understanding that these parents were under stress themselves, and what they did to themselves or did as a way to cope. If we are not finding positive ways to cope, then many times we will cycle back and we will use those same coping mechanisms that we saw. As I call it, the things that we hate are sometimes the things that a parent can become. The things that they had in their own childhood were things that they can become if there is not intervention, if there is not the opportunity. And as it shows you through the tape, how interventions, how being able to stop and be aware and getting the help that was necessary and needed was able to begin to change the cycles and the stories. Understand also too where we begun in our series, and we're almost here at the end of our presentation. We started talking about the effects. We are body, soul, and spirit, and understand each part impacts upon another. Each part impacts upon another. What is happening in our bodies? You saw that the release of excessive amounts of cortisol and what that is doing. Falsely stimulated adrenaline, or getting to the point where that body is no longer producing, because now we've used drinking, smoking as a coping mechanism, whatever that situation be, to its excess, and now it has depressed the system. I share with people, alcohol is a depressant. It doesn't play itself like that, and I'm not going to teach that at this particular time, but I will say that it depresses the system on every level. The coordination, speech, all of these become impaired. And then when you have to look at a little child who is just standing there wanting to eat, won't feel like wanting to cook for them, won't feel like cleaning up your environment, won't feel like So one thing is playing out over another and their basic needs that they have. So now they have to go into survival mode. And what kinds of things and personality types are produced out of that? When there's consistent neglect, these are the developments of the antisocial personalities. We don't recognize, and I'm not saying that that's at a broad degree, but I am saying that there are factors that play back into this thing of ACEs. So again, that information was there, and I hope you got something out of that. Here we are. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, I'm looking at that water. That is so good. Here we go. So in all of this, managing stress, how are we taking care of ourselves? Because if you don't do it, guess what? Nobody can really do this for you. This is something that you have to do. Our children, at the time, they're children. And so they have their needs that are met. We can teach them how to have their own independence so that they can have spaces of time where they learn how to play, independently, and you're able to rest so they can respect those moments when this is your moments of self-reflection and self-care. But on a normal basis, when you have little small children, developmentally, that's not quite where they're at. And so we have to learn ways to be healthy, to care, to reach out, and get help when you can and when it's necessary. So I'm going to play this little video, and it's only these little 2-minute clips to give us some help.
Stress.
Parent,
Everyone experiences
stress.
it both at work and in their personal lives. It's often caused by changes in the world around us that we can't control. But what we can control is how we cope with and react to stress. Let's take a look at some strategies for dealing with it. Make time for hobbies and self-care. When we're stressed, we have a tendency to focus on the things that are stressing us out, and we lose sight of taking care of ourselves. It's important to find some time in your schedule to relax or do what you enjoy. This can give you a renewed sense of energy and well-being. Use time management skills. There may be times where projects and tasks just start to pile up and you feel trapped under it all. This could be due to procrastinating or taking on too much work. Try listing out your tasks and prioritizing them. This can make it easier to get through them, and who knows, you may even find some tasks that are unnecessary or that you can delegate to others. Exercise. Stress often makes us tired and increases our anxiety. Studies have shown that over time, exercise can help to reduce anxiety levels and make you feel more energetic. Find an activity that you enjoy, whether it's walking, swimming, or something else, and try fitting it into your schedule a few times a week. Remove unnecessary sources of stress. While you can't control the changes that happen to you, there may be certain stressors that you can eliminate. For example, you could try limiting your access to daily news, spending less time on social media, or reducing the number of new projects you take on. While stress is inevitable, it's important to remember that there are always ways of managing it and improving the quality of your life.
GCF Global, creating opportunities for a better life.
Okay. So we have some things there that, and maybe there's more that you have that you found that work for you. Maybe there are things that you like to do. You saw the first picture. Go and just sit by the water. Feed the ducks. Sit and watch as others go by. Or I live in a nice area right here on the water. This is wonderful. I call it the city on the water. And so it makes it so nice. You can go and walk. Get to the water maybe about 5 minutes from any specific location. Whatever it is that helps you, prayer, meditating, keeping your music, all of these things are ways in which you can cope, and trying to, as he said, look at, your days. I think about Psalms 90, and it says, Lord, teach me to number my days that I might apply my heart to wisdom. And as you look at this scripture, we need the wisdom and the understanding and knowledge. I believe that in paraphrasing that particular verse, the thing of that we have 24 hours in a day, and how are we using that time? How are we using any of that time to care for ourselves? Breathing is another one that I did not put on here, but that they did not highlight or bring up. But relaxing, you know, how you hear people say, just breathe. It is so powerful because what breathing does, deep breathing, uh, muscle relaxation techniques allow your body to kind of have a moment to slow down, rewire, so that you can process. You'll be surprised at just how you start breathing in deeply and letting it out slowly, how that will help you. Sometime when things are moving fast, I just kind of slow down and start walking slowly, just to bring myself back into the right tone. The 3 R's that I always say, therapy 101. And that is, what are we doing in terms of rest, in terms of what we're eating, and what it is that how much exercise we are getting. That is so important to reroute, to treat anxiety, to treat depression, to treat heart disease. You will see a common thread. What are we eating? Because if you're eating and taking in too many sugars in your body, all these kind of things can add on stress to you. Okay. And so I hope that you have enjoyed this time that we've shared. If you have questions, even as you go back and review these tapes are being taped and made available to you, then there will be things that you will be able to, maybe have questions that you want to ask, and you can write or put those questions in. You can even go and be able to seek out help. I did provide for you here, and it is Zoe Counseling and Consulting PLLC, where I'm my partner. Have a practice here in the city of Port Huron. You can find us at Help Me Zoe. Also, of course, I put National Parent Hotline numbers here, and the National Alliance of Mental Illness and Mental Health. Some reading resources that you might be able to go back to, Everyday ABCs of Child Rearing, Parent Stress. There's a lot of information. Do what you need to do to educate yourself, to assess yourself, to assess what's going on around you, and also for you to take care of yourself. May God bless you, and I am hoping that you will have an awesome day. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Kim Brown, Pastor Kim Brown, for sharing this information with us on today. As parents, it's very important that we seek help early. It's normal to experience stress at some time in your life, but that stress that you experience should not be such that it makes you want to harm yourself or harm your children. It should not lead you to a point where you begin to neglect your children. There are many counselors, many therapists in Lansing and in the surrounding cities that can be of assistance to you. Remember, you only raise your children one time. And whether you are the best parent in the world or the worst parent in the world, you're their parent. You're their mom, you're their dad, whether they are your natural children or your adopted children. And so most of us want our children to have the best opportunity in the world. And that means if we are not taking care of ourselves, then we can't give them the best care possible. So I'd like to encourage you, it's never too late. I'd like to encourage you to continue to find safe ways, healthy ways to relax, to rewind, so that you are not overcome by stress and your children are able to enjoy the lessons that you're going to teach them throughout their lives, and they will grow into healthy, wonderful adults as each of us continues to learn how to handle stress, whether we are a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, or a care provider. And so as we prepare to end today's session, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us. We will have another session on next week where we will be joined by a pediatrician. And that pediatrician, I think you're really going to enjoy her. Thank you again to Kimberly Brown, Pastor Kim Brown, therapist Kim Brown, who is also a mom herself and a grandmother. And so she's had a lot of experience as well as training on how to help others deal with stress and how to deal with stress in your personal life. So have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you next week at 12:30.